Hello and welcome to my second presentation. In this presentation I'll be evaluating the contribution of sport and physical activity in an international development context. So, what is sport for development? Essentially, sport for development is a method of improving societies and making change through sport. Hartman 2011 states that drawing on critical theory and informed by our own research on sport-based social programs, the authors attempts to impart clarity by distinguishing two different approaches to sport and development. A dominant vision in which sport essentially reproduces established social relations, and an interventionist approach in which sport is intended to contribute to more fundamental change and transformation. So, sport from a historical perspective in teaching values. Sport in the British Empire served as a unifying force, often imbibing nationalist rhetoric, with matches serving as focused representations of the climate of social and political struggle. Football was the most popular sport in the empire, and it often unified the colonised across economic and social classes. During early modern England, there was a harsh reality of premature death, chronic illness, physical breakdown and poverty. Sport was used to help satisfy the longing for amusement, distraction and laughter for the labouring men and women. It was an escape from the drabness of everyday routine. Sport has the power to provide a universal framework for learning values, thus contributing to the development of soft skills needed for responsible citizenship. So what is sport's effect on MDGs and SDGs? First we're going to talk about an MDG, which is promoting gender equality and empowering women. And this initiative, called Go Sisters in Zambia from Edu Sport, it was launched in 2001 and implemented under the Girls Empowerment Through Sport concept. It aims to allow girls to play, learn and exercise leadership roles, develop, discuss and have that space which is usually taken away from them. It's run by girls, for girls, with girls, trying to incorporate boys to raise a generation appreciating and respecting one another. So next we have an SDG, which is good health and well-being, and my example is the WHO, the World Health Organization, and the IOC, International Olympic Committee, team up to improve health through sport. They signed an agreement to work together on it in May 2020. Using sport to promote healthy lifestyles, the IOC President, Thomas Bach, we have seen how important sport and physical activity are for physical and mental health. Sport can save lives. The two organisations intend to work to promote grassroots and community sport programmes that have a further reach within general public, particularly among girls, older people and the disabled. So next, stop war boycotts against Russia. Manchester City United joined forces to display a message of solidarity with Ukraine as both sides wear t-shirts carrying no war message before the derby. They had a minute of applause beforehand. Ukraine flags were unfurled by City fans before kick-off. Captains were wearing Ukrainian coloured armbands. This sent a political message to millions around the world to show war is wrong. Zinchenko, Manchester City fullback, was given a standing ovation and a round of applause when walking onto the field. Football stands together. However, Turkish footballer Aykut Demir refused to wear the No War t-shirt in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. This was due to a lack of attention being given to conflicts in the Middle East, including civil war in Yemen. Reported by the United Nations, there was a projected 377,000 that have died from war by end of 2021. Millions were displaced. The Syrian war is ongoing, and the BBC have reported 387,118 dead in March 2021, with a further 205,300 missing and presumed dead. Here we have an initiative called ANERA Sport for Development and Peace. Since 1968, ANERA has helped refugees and others hurt by conflicts in Palestine, Lebanon and Jordan live with purpose and hope. They aim to mobilise resources for immediate emergency relief and for sustainable long-term health education and economic development. Staff serve in their communities navigating the politics that constrict progress to get help where it's needed most. ANERA offers sport courses, community sport days and tournaments for youth aged 14 to 24 in partnership with 100 plus local organisations. Community culture is taken into consideration through mixed gender and segregated activities. Also, build and renovate sports facilities used by entire communities, including younger children. Sport promotes understanding and peaceful coexistence among Lebanese, Syrian and Palestine communities. How does the programme work? It brings communities together It builds confidence, involve girls, and building safe spaces. So, UNICEF's human rights-based approach to programming, in particular Box 5, which is the rights of children and women. UNICEF's Sport for Development work is rooted to ensure every child's right to play and recreation. UNICEF uses sport for development to help achieve goals in 5 thematic focus areas: young child survival and development, basic education and gender equality, HIV and AIDS prevention, treatment, care and support, child protection from violence, exploitation, abuse, and policy advocacy and partnerships for children's rights. A human rights-based approach means UNICEF's ultimate aim is the realisation of the rights of children and women, consistent with the Convention on the Rights of the Child and the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women. Human rights and child rights principles guide the organisation's work in all sectors, including SDPs, and at each stage of the process, these principles include universality. 1. Non-discrimination. 2. Best interests of the child. 3. Rights to survival and development. 4. Invisibility and independence of human rights. And 5. Accountability and respect for the voice of the child. So I'd now like to talk about the IOC, which is the International Olympic Committee. It's the guardian of the Olympic Games and leader of the Olympic movement. It has 4 functions: to stop doping in sport, act against discrimination, encourage and support initiatives to blend sport with culture and education, encourage and support sports organisations and public authorities' efforts for social and professional future of athletes. It has a refugee Olympic team, and I particularly like the idea of Beyond the Games, which they work to promote art, culture and heritage, education, gender equality in sports, which you could link to the SDG and gender equality, and MDG, promote gender equality. Human rights, you could link that to UNICEF's human rights-based approach to programming. Integrity, Olympic Day, Olympic solidarity, peace and development, refugees, sport and active society, sustainability, and young leaders. So the 2010 FIFA World Cup in South Africa. So the vehicles of legitimation are tourism, employment, infrastructural investment, consumer confidence, and overall macroeconomic growth. So what are the positives to take from this? There was a prediction of an increase in gross domestic product of $7.46 billion from 2006 to 2010, with $16 billion due from tax and revenue collected. $2.98 billion will be spent on infrastructure, and the World Cup was a main stimulus behind an increase in employment of 368,000 to 415,000. Additionally, 480,000 to 750,000 visitors were spending $1.29 billion expected. The World Cup was also responsible for 1% of growth rate in South Africa in 2010. The Visa estimated that spending in South Africa using cards increased by 65% compared to June 2009. However, the reality of figures is questioned. Its anticipated amount of tourists downgraded from 480,000 to 373,000 by early June 2010 and 200,000 in July 2010. Instead of an increase in tourism, the World Cup probably deterred 50,000 tourists who normally travel to South Africa but were uninterested in the football and put off by the higher prices of accommodation, transportation, and other services that accompanied the World Cup. Here you can see a table which compares the urban impacts of mega events. And here are all of the references I've used to gather the evidence I have collected.